All right, so today we're diving into a real historical epic,
Oh, yeah.
the Book of Ezra,
The whole thing.
all 10 chapters.
Wow.
It's about the return of the Israelites from exile in Babylon
Right.
and the rebuilding of the temple in Jerusalem.
Huge undertaking.
Talk about a massive construction project.
And not just the physical building.
Yeah.
It's this powerful symbol of spiritual and cultural renewal, too.
Yeah, like after decades of exile,
Decades.
coming back to Jerusalem,
Yeah.
rebuilding the temple.
It's like reclaiming their identity.
Exactly like hitting the reset button on their history.
I like that.
And what kicks it all off is this surprising decree from Cyrus,
Cyrus the Great,
the Persian king.
who conquered the Babylonians.
You'd think he'd impose his own culture.
But he doesn't.
It's like, go back to Jerusalem, rebuild your temple, worship your God.
Pretty radical for an ancient conqueror.
Totally unexpected.
Especially when you consider ancient empires.
Yeah.
Cyrus was known for his religious tolerance. It was a strategic move, actually,
Oh, how so?
to maintain stability in his vast empire.
I see.
Lots of different cultures and religions.
Makes sense.
So letting them practice their own religions,
Right.
it fostered loyalty,
Right.
reduced the risk of rebellion.
Smart.
All right.
So it's kind of like, keep your gods, just pay your taxes, and we're good.
In a nutshell, yeah.
But it's deeper than just practical politics.
Oh, absolutely.
Cyrus even returns the treasures Nebuchadnezzar looted from the temple.
All those sacred
And
items.
all those vessels and things mentioned back in chapter 1.
Exactly.
So it's not just permission to return. It's like an
Wow.
act of restitution
It is.
by returning these objects.
He's acknowledging their significance.
Right.
It legitimizes their claim to the temple.
Powerful.
Powerful affirmation of their faith.
This is where it gets really interesting for me.
Okay, tell me.
Chapter 2 dives into this incredibly detailed census.
The sense?
Names, families, where they came from.
All meticulously recorded.
I'll be honest.
What's that?
My eyes glazed over a bit, reading through all the names.
Lots of names.
Why is this record keeping so important?
Well, it might seem tedious to us,
It does.
but these genealogical records,
Yeah,
they were central to Jewish identity.
I see.
Lineage determined tribal affiliation,
Yeah.
inheritance rights, and most importantly, who could serve in the priesthood.
Wow, so it's not just a family tree.
No, it's not.
It's a blueprint for their entire society.
Exactly.
And speaking of the priesthood,
Yes.
there's that passage about individuals who couldn't prove their lineage,
Oh, right.
and they were excluded.
Couldn't serve.
Talk about a bureaucratic nightmare.
Imagine that.
Being told you can't fulfill your calling.
Because your great-great-grandfather's paperwork is missing?
Oh,
This exclusion highlights how strict the religious hierarchy was.
really emphasizes that.
Maintaining the purity of the priesthood was paramount.
It's a reminder that even in ancient times,
What's that?
bureaucracy could be a real headache. So they finally arise in Jerusalem,
They made it.
start rebuilding the altar,
Yes.
laying the foundation of the temple.
Big day.
Chapter 3 describes the scene.
What's it like?
Priests blowing trumpets,
Wow.
elders weeping,
Really?
shouts of joy and sorrow echoing through the valley.
I bet it was emotional.
Must have been incredibly emotional.
This wasn't just a construction project. It was
Yeah.
the culmination of decades of longing and prayer.
For many, a return to the land of their ancestors.
A land they'd only heard stories about.
Wow, imagine the weight of history. The fulfillment of prophecy.
All converging in that moment.
And just when things are getting started,
What happens?
the Samaritans enter the picture.
Oh, the Samaritans.
Who were these folks?
And why were they so keen on disrupting the party?
Right.
Well, the Samaritans were descendants of Israelites
Oh,
who had intermarried with other populations centuries earlier.
during the Assyrian exile.
Right.
So they had a similar religion.
Similar, but with some key differences. And they considered themselves legitimate heirs to the land and the temple,
So their offer to help rebuild
as described in chapter 4.
might seem friendly at first glance,
It does.
but the returning exiles politely declined.
Interesting.
Why was that?
Well, from their perspective,
Yeah.
the Samaritans represented a compromised form of worship,
I see.
a blending of traditions that they saw as a threat.
A threat to their religious purity.
Exactly.
So accepting their help would have meant acknowledging the legitimacy of their practices.
Which they weren't willing to do.
And the Samaritans feeling rejected.
What did they do?
They decided to play hardball.
Oh, no.
They used their political savvy to stall the construction
Really?
for years,
Oh, wow.
exploiting the complexities of the Persian bureaucracy.
Until the reign of Darius.
Wow, so their tactics were effective.
They were.
bringing the project to a standstill.
It really highlights the precarious position of the Jews.
Right.
They were rebuilding their nation,
Yeah.
but still under the authority of a foreign power.
Subject to its whims and political machinations.
Exactly.
And as the years dragged on,
What happened?
people started to lose hope.
It's understandable.
Enter the prophets,
The prophets,
Haggai and Zechariah,
with their fiery sermons,
urging the people to get back to work.
it's like a divine pep talk.
Exactly.
Prophets played a crucial role.
Yeah.
They were seen as God's messengers,
Challenging complacency.
calling the people back to faithfulness,
Their words often served as a catalyst
reminding them of their covenant with God.
and their obligation to rebuild the temple.
Powerful stuff.
And it seems their message got through.
It did.
The work resumed under King Darius.
Good.
But then we encounter this new governor,
Who's that? Tatnai.
who seems a little suspicious
Suspicious of why?
of the whole operation.
I see.
So again, we see the Persian Empire
Yes.
trying to maintain order and control.
And within its vast territories.
Tatnai's job was to ensure stability, and a major construction project like the temple.
Would naturally attract his attention.
So he questions their authority to build.
And what do they say?
The Jewish elders respond with this respectful but firm letter.
What do they say?
Basically, hey, we're just following the decree of Cyrus. You can check the records.
Smart move.
They're appealing to Persian authority,
Right.
demonstrating their loyalty to the empire,
Not challenging it.
and asserting their legal right to rebuild.
Good strategy.
And here's where it gets really dramatic.
Okay, I'm listening.
They actually find Cyrus's original decree in the archives.
Wow.
Talk about a historical mic drop moment.
A remarkable discovery.
It really is.
It solidified the legal basis for the temple's reconstruction.
Nobody could object.
Not even the Samaritans.
Darius is clearly impressed,
He is.
not only reaffirming the project,
But also...
issuing a stern warning against interfering with the construction.
Wow.
He even implies that his own well-being is tied to the success of the temple.
That's interesting.
Seems like a pretty savvy power move. Darius understood the importance of aligning himself with the God of the Jews,
I see.
ensuring the continuation of the project, and by extension, his own reign.
It was a strategic move
It was
that benefited both the Persian Empire and the Jewish community in Jerusalem.
a win-win.
Exactly.
So after all this political drama and intrigue and divine intervention,
They had it all.
the temple is finally finished.
Wow.
Chapter 6 describes this massive celebration,
Oh, yeah.
a grand Passover feast.
You can almost feel the collective sigh of relief.
They actually pulled it off.
It's a testament to their resilience, their faith, their determination.
Imagine what it must have felt like.
To see that temple standing,
A symbol of their history.
their identity, their covenant with God restored.
It marked the end of a long and painful chapter in their history.
It did.
But as we know, the story doesn't end there.
It doesn't.
Enter Ezra, the skilled scribe and priest,
Ezra.
arriving in Jerusalem
Where the-
with a new wave of exiles
And,
and a whole new set of challenges.
ooh, that's where we'll pick up next time.
It is.
Can't wait.
Me neither.
So we left off with the temple finally complete.
Right, a triumphant symbol of resilience and faith.
But as we turn to Ezra chapters 7 through 10,
Okay,
a new chapter unfolds.
a new chapter.
One that reveals those internal struggles,
Yeah.
challenges of maintaining religious identity.
Yeah, it's almost like they conquer the external obstacles,
Right.
only to face a whole new set of internal conflicts.
Exactly.
Ezra, this highly respected scribe and priest,
Right.
arrives in Jerusalem
He does.
with a mission to revitalize Jewish law and practice.
He's not just overseeing construction anymore.
It's bigger than that.
He's leading a religious reformation.
So Ezra arrives with the blessing of King Artaxerxes,
He does.
armed with scrolls and a deep understanding of the law of Moses.
And his lineage.
Yeah.
It's meticulously traced back to Aaron,
The first high priest,
emphasizing his authority.
his legitimacy as a religious leader. It's like he's arriving with the ultimate religious resume.
I like that.
And Artaxerxes doesn't just give him permission.
No, he doesn't.
He provides provisions, funding, even tax exemptions.
For the priests and Levites.
So it seems like the Persian Empire
Yes.
recognizes the importance of a stable and devout Jewish community
It does.
within its borders.
This continued support,
Yeah.
it really speaks volumes about their approach.
The Persian rulers.
Yes, their pragmatic approach.
So they understood that allowing a certain degree of autonomy and religious freedom.
It helped to maintain peace
Right.
and loyalty within their empire.
It's fascinating how religious and political interests could sometimes align.
Even in ancient times.
But then the story takes a dramatic turn.
Oh, what happens?
Ezra discovers that many of the returning exiles,
Okay.
including some priests and Levites,
Mm-hmm.
have married women from surrounding nations.
Oh.
And his reaction is intense.
It's a bit much for us, maybe.
It is.
But to understand Ezra's distress,
Yeah.
we need to consider the historical and theological context,
Right, they just returned from exile in Babylon.
where they were exposed to diverse cultures and religious practices.
So there's this fear
Yeah.
that intermarriage would lead to assimilation
It would dilute their distinct identity.
and their covenant with God.
Precisely.
For Ezra marrying outside the faith,
Yes.
it wasn't just a personal choice.
No, it was
It was a threat to the very survival of their traditions.
and their unique relationship with God.
In chapter 9, we see Ezra's reaction,
What's he do?
tearing his clothes,
Yeah.
pulling his hair, fasting in despair.
Wow, a powerful expression of grief and anxiety.
It does seem like an extreme reaction,
It does.
but it speaks to how important maintaining their religious boundaries was.
And preserving their covenant with God.
What I find interesting is that his anguish resonates with people.
It does.
They don't dismiss his concerns.
No.
They share his fear.
Ezra's passionate plea.
Yeah.
It strikes a chord with those who had endured exile.
They longed for a restored and unified community,
And they recognize the challenges
of preserving their identity.
in a world of diverse cultures and beliefs.
So how do they address this intermarriage problem?
Yeah, what do?
Do they try to educate to integrate?
Well, they choose a more drastic path.
What's that?
Under Ezra's leadership, they agree to separate from their foreign wives,
Wow.
a decision fraught with ethical complexities.
Especially for modern readers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Chapter 10 lists the names of those who divorced their wives.
It's meticulously documented.
It's a sobering reminder that these weren't just theological debates.
No, they weren't.
These were real people.
Whose lives were profoundly impacted.
It makes you wonder about the women involved.
Right.
Their voices are largely absent from the narrative.
It's a poignant silence
It is.
that speaks volumes about the patriarchal nature of their society.
We can only imagine the pain, the confusion, the betrayal.
Experienced by these women and their children.
The text doesn't delve into their stories.
But their absence is a powerful reminder of the human cost.
It's a stark contrast to the joyous celebrations surrounding the temple.
It is.
We see the community grappling with internal divisions,
the difficult choices.
involved in defining and defending their religious identity.
Big question.
Did this mass separation achieve the religious purity Ezra sought?
That's a question that continues to resonate.
It does.
The text ends with the completion of the separation,
Okay.
perhaps suggesting a sense of resolution,
Okay.
but the long-term consequences remain open to interpretation.
Right.
Did it create a more unified community, or did it sow seeds of resentment and division?
It's a difficult chapter to read,
It is.
especially through a modern lens.
The forced separation of families raises serious ethical concerns.
It does.
It leaves us wrestling with the complexities of applying ancient laws to contemporary life.
And that's the power of these ancient texts.
What's that?
They challenge us to confront uncomfortable truths
To grapple with those ethical dilemmas.
that transcend time and place.
They remind us that even in moments of triumph, difficult choices and unforeseen consequences can arise,
Shaping the course of history.
and challenging our understanding of faith and identity.
We've been through a lot with the book of Ezra, haven't we?
We have.
The Israelites returning from exile,
Yeah.
rebuilding the temple,
That incredible feat.
and then all those challenges defining their identity in this new era.
So many layers to this story.
Resilience, faith, some really tough choices.
It really makes you think
It does.
about religious boundaries, cultural identity.
Trying to preserve tradition in a changing world.
Such a pivotal moment in Jewish history.
It is. On the one hand, you have the temple rebuilt,
Right.
symbol of their renewed covenant with God. There's this fear of losing their identity,
Through intermarriage.
leading to that painful separation.
It's a real turning point.
What do you think is Ezra's legacy?
It's complex, multifaceted.
Yeah.
He's revered for his commitment to the law,
Right.
reestablishing those temple rituals, laying the groundwork for rabbinic Judaism.
But those forced divorces.
As documented in Chapter 10,
Yeah.
they raise those difficult questions.
About religious authority?
When rigid interpretations of the law clash with lived experience.
It's about balance, isn't it?
Balance.
Preserving tradition while adapting to new realities.
It's a tension that runs throughout Jewish history,
They were living in the Persian Empire.
surrounded by other cultures and beliefs.
Could they really remain completely separate
That desire to maintain a unique identity.
while navigating a diverse world?
It makes you wonder
What's that?
if the intermarriage issue continued to be a point of debate.
Even after those separations. So maybe Ezra's actions didn't solve the problem,
Maybe not.
but it definitely brought it to the forefront,
It did.
forcing them to grapple with what it meant to be Jewish in this new era.
Sparked a conversation,
Yeah.
a process of self-definition.
And it highlights how dynamic religious traditions are
They're constantly being interpreted, reinterpreted, adapted,
to meet those challenges of changing circumstance.
always evolve.
Even ancient texts.
They deal with those messy human dilemmas.
And those dilemmas.
They don't always have easy answers.
It's what makes studying these texts so compelling.
It is.
It challenges us
To think critically
wrestle with ethical complexity,
and to recognize that enduring power of faith and identity.
even as they evolve and adapt over time.
Powerful stuff.
This has been quite a journey through Ezra,
It has.
from the ruins of exile to the triumph of rebuilding.
From political maneuvering to internal struggles.
A story that resonates with resilience, faith, and the search for identity.
And it reminds us
Of what?
that the human experience, even in ancient times,
Yeah.
it's filled with complexities, contradictions, and difficult choices.
And through engaging with these stories,
Wrestling with these
we
challenges
gain a deeper understanding of ourselves.
and the world around us.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the book of Ezra,
It's been a pleasure.
a story that continues to speak to us across centuries,
It does.
reminding us of the power of faith
The complexities of identity.
and the importance of seeking understanding in a changing world.
Absolutely.